to slow growth in an effort to keep their prices high. Here to discuss is Mark Murphy, CEO of TravelPulse.com. Mark, welcome back.
Thank you.
When you saw this news this afternoon, were you surprised by it?
Yeah, because you know what? What's ironic about this is what did the Department of Justice do several years ago? They approved all of these mergers. They got us down.
All the airlines, that is.
Yeah, so they took us from many airlines down to a handful of airlines to control 80% of domestic traffic. So now you have a situation where you have an oligopoly, and yeah, people are matching prices, they are matching routes, and they're being very careful on how they compete because they don't want to do what they did in the past, which is add a bunch of equipment, add a bunch of seats, not fill them, and suffer bankruptcies.
It does seem like boom or bust, though, because 7 or 8 years ago, you were getting on a plane, right? And every time, 50% of the seats were empty.
Correct.
And you were getting the cheaper airfares. Now it's every single plane,
so think about that.
Is jammed.
Exactly. They're filled to capacity. So think about that. So the airlines blew it because they tried to get too competitive and too aggressive. And now we're saying, okay, they're being prudent, they're being smart on how they manage their business, and now all of a sudden the DOJ is going after them for that. Doesn't make any sense.
Are they being smart or prudent, or are they conspiring to
I don't believe they're conspiring.
High?
I don't think the airlines are talking to each other about, hey, we're going to add a route here or not add a route there. They're looking at it very prudently. What they're talking about is the public statements that have been made by these airline executives, which is about controlling capacity in order to maintain yield. That's called Economics 101. That's called capitalism last time I checked, right?
So flights are up, what, 13% it is from 2009
yeah,
to 2013?
The base fares are up from 2009 to 2015, 13%. So we really put that in perspective. I know you and I think it's a lot worse, but it
does seem like it's a lot worse, but I guess we're traveling at peak times.
And also it depends on where you travel from. Because of the consolidation, a lot of these secondary cities that used to have nonstop service now have connecting service. They, in some cases, have seen a 70% increase in fares to go from, let's say, Jackson, Mississippi through Atlanta up to New York, whereas it might have been a lot cheaper before all this consolidation.
Do you think there'll be some sort of a drawback at least, so you might see flights instead of just every time it seems like they're announcing this is a fully booked flight?
Right.
Does it pull back eventually to like a 90 or a 95%?
It's supply and demand. What we're seeing this 4th of July in terms of a trend, what we're seeing is a trend for more people hitting the road, record travel, and more people taking cars. So as gas prices stay low, people are going to be incentivized to take that family of 4 instead of going to the airport, get in the car and drive somewhere. Just don't go to the beaches of North Carolina yet, right? We got to hold off on that, or at least don't go in the water. It's like Jaws, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going
on.
It's
crazy.
It's odd off North Carolina right now.
Exactly.
If you're advising people who are traveling, other than be prepared to spend a little bit more because these fares are still up, and be prepared to spend more on baggage fees as more go the a la carte route. What are you telling people these days?
Well, number one, call a travel agent because they can go through all the fares and all the extra fees. They book 40% of all domestic tickets and about 60% of all international tickets. So you can do that, number one. Number two, book far enough out, because if you book far enough out, you and I will get hit with high fees and high travel costs with tickets because we're last-minute bookers. The airlines make a lot of money on people like us. On the other hand, the leisure travelers that fill the back of the plane, they tend to get the best price points because they book far enough out. There's a thing called yield management. Fewer seats, higher cost per remaining seat, and that's what happens.
Who are you usually flying these days?
I fly a lot of American and U.S. Air, now American, out of Philadelphia because I'm out of Philadelphia and I'm also out of Fort Lauderdale. So when I fly out of Fort Lauderdale, I fly to New York on JetBlue. So it really just depends on the routes. Flying out of Fort Lauderdale, you're going to fly a lot of JetBlue just because of how the route structures are and the frequencies.
And obviously the flying days around Thanksgiving and Christmas are really, really high. It's not as high around 4th of July, though, right?
Not typically. The biggest travel dates of the year are Thanksgiving and then the Christmas break. That's where you really want to book out and to get those kids out of school a couple days early. I understand you just had another child, so take the kids out of school and get on the road early and save a few bucks and less stress.
So I get to book 4 seats now.
Exactly.
I'm going to sit in the solo row, though. The 3 of them can sit behind.
You going first, your wife and the kids in the back of the bus.
Oh,
That's
boy.
great, yeah.
Getting in trouble. Mark Murphy, thank you.